traditionally, someone will come up here and then they'll give you a format, a template. You're supposed to make a pitch deck like this. You're supposed to give investors this stuff, etc. But I'm switching things up a bit. So the way I've formatted this is it's really going to be based on my own personal journey and life story. And at particular milestones in my life. I will be talking really about what I was experiencing raising money for a seed stage company. And show of hands if anyone here knows what a seed stage or pre-seed stage company is. No one. So if your startup is what we call a seed stage company or pre-seed, it means that one, you probably aren't revenue generating or profit making. Two, you are still building a product or service, which is to find its place in the market. So it's a very experimental stage, very high risk. You have no assets, you have no books, you have no collateral that you can present to a bank. So usually a company at this stage faces a lot of difficulty in raising capital, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, I've been building tech companies all my life. And when you're building a tech company and you're asking for financing in Africa, you are going to get some very tough questions, which I don't think you can ask. So, yeah, let's start the presentation. And I've kept it very, very simple. So the key milestones here is when I was 22, when I was 24, and now when I'm 26. And basically, I'm just going to explain what all these aforementioned topics look like. So the very first, we can move on to the next one. The very first time I had a taste of money, I was 18 years old. So I was still in high school, or I was finishing high school. And this is when my entrepreneurial zeal had started to come through. So I had this idea. I said to myself, look, what are we going to do when we finish our Form 6, our Upper 6? Most of my classmates at the time had gap years that they were planning on taking for one or two reasons. Parents were still raising money for university fees. And I had kind of noticed what happens during that gap year, not much, besides just kind of playing around. So I had this idea. I said, what if we created a club or a fund that we would all contribute our tuck money in from year start to finish. And when you finish your Form 6 year, you can apply for funding to work on a project for the duration of that year. So it was an idea I came up with a friend of mine, and we called it Second Gen Africa for second generation. And obviously, the key thing was, well, how were we going to fund this thing? So we did some research. So I went to a school called Hillcrest College, just outside of Mutare. And the first thing I would notice was the amount of money that my fellow students were spending on a daily basis, right? $5, $6 a day. So I did some math. I said, clearly, these children can afford to give me $20 a month, and if I just have 100 of them, that means we have $2,000 a month. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. So I started marketing this idea to the school. And the very first term, we actually did have 100 kids sign up. And they all contributed $20. And this was the first time I had more than 3 digits. I had ever raised more than 3 digits. We had $2,000. And then the next month, they did it again. And then the next month, they did it again. So the first term, we crowdfunded $6,000. And the second term, the same thing happened. Now, I didn't know what I was doing at this stage. I'll be very honest with you, right? Because what we were doing was saying, you raise this money, we teach you about entrepreneurship. I went online, downloaded some papers, downloaded some presentations and videos, and I would repeat some of the stuff that I had read online. And yeah, afterwards, we'll do like pitch sessions, come with your idea. You want $200, you want 500, and we'll do it. We had these sessions every Tuesday, and we would buy pizza. We're the only club in the school which would buy pizza. So it attracted a lot of kids. And we were very liquid. But the key lesson I learned during that time was that if you want to raise capital, at times it can be as simple as merely selling to your community, right? Your church, your classmates, your workmates, your neighborhood. Most innovations we know of really just started off in very simple methods like that. Unfortunately, this idea never really went anywhere because I had big ambitions. I wanted to franchise and stuff. So I started bunking school a lot and traveling to different schools to pitch this idea. My school did not like that at all. And yeah, we faced administrative closure, That was the unfortunate end to it, but I still believe there was hope. And then the second time, and I called this one, Get Stuff Done. Oh, I think I misspelled that. Now, I was 22, and at this time, this is 4 years after my first venture. It's around the time COVID had started. And I was in Harare. I had moved to Harare at the time. I really didn't have anything I was doing. I'll be very honest with you. I was kind of trying to figure out things. But I knew I wanted to do something. My passion in tech and, in financial services meant I wanted to build something which complemented technology and finance. And one day, I'm pitching, as I always did during those days. And I happened to walk into a room at one of the largest banks in Zimbabwe. And when I walked into this room, I overheard a conversation between the managers. And they were having a problem. So they had just received money from Visa. And Visa was saying, you need to help your merchants be able to set up e-commerce so that people can start using Visa cards. So when I overheard this conversation, I dashed in and I said, you guys, I have the solution. We've built this already, right? I'll be honest, guys. This was complete BS. There was nothing on the ground, zero. And I said, what do you mean? I said, guys, we've built this. I can come here with a demo tomorrow. And the guy said, if you can bring a demo tomorrow and present it to us, we'll consider you for this contract. So I went to my partner and said, look, I think we might have something going. We're not sleeping tonight. We're burning the midnight oil. Let's make a quick demo, right? So we went on our computers and we just started slaving away, making a demonstrative website, to show how this whole flow would work. Then the next day, 4 p.m., these guys came, there were all these mean-looking people, and they were looking at us. I said, these are the guys with the solution. And I said, yeah, we have the solution. So we projected on the big screen, started showing people that demo. For some reason, they bought it. And I don't know why. Maybe we were very convincing. And he said, all right, let's start the process on how best we can onboard you. And the amount of money that contract was worth at the time was $50,000. Now, mind you, at this point in time, I'm surviving on maybe $5 a day. I don't think we were making more than $1,000 a month to survive. And all of a sudden, one of the largest and publicly listed institutions agreed. And then they said, we'll give you a contract for $50,000. And I was I was extremely excited. So this was one of the advantages of COVID. It converted a lot of institutions into thinking on how best they could actually digitize. And we actually went on to register the company the next day. We registered the company the next day. I had a guy of mine and I said, this company, I need tax clearances. I need everything, within a week's time, because there were all these people from procurement and compliance. They're like, we need to see your papers. We registered the company and we called it Motapa Technologies, and I had this vision that, we can actually build something. So ever since we started that company, we've grown the revenues to over $200,000 a year. And the source of funding for this, and the reason I'm putting source of funding there is because things will be changing as we go along, is we finance this company purely through revenue. I never got outside capital. There's no venture capitalist who came in, no angel, nothing. I own this company outright. And really, we've just financed it organically through revenues. Now, I hear a lot of founders always complaining to say, I can't start a business without capital. And this is why I say get stuff done. Because at the end of the day, you really don't need somebody to come with a big pile of money for you to get started, right? You're not an entrepreneur if you need that to happen. It is extremely possible to come up with different methods on how best you can finance yourself, especially in the interim. And this is critical if your business can be started this way. So the key lesson I learned there was, you don't need investors to get started. Just sell your product or service. If you don't have a product or service, sell yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, sell a dream which someone else can buy. Because people are always looking to buy something. You might as well offer them. So I was 22 at this stage, and this was a critical milestone. So we kept building and building and building. And then we moved on to the next stage. Now, at this stage in my life, I had graduated to the big leagues. So I founded a company called FlexID around the time that I was doing my work at Motapa. But FlexID was so complicated. I would try and explain it to people no one understands. You know, blockchain, digital ID, nobody bought it. I would try to sell it to businesses. They wouldn't buy it because they didn't get it. It was so complicated. And I spent years trying to educate the market on what I was trying to do. So this kind of business now, unfortunately, I could not finance it through revenues because the product wasn't yet there. And it was going to take years to build out this kind of product to sell to the market. Now, I didn't have a product to sell, so I couldn't finance it through revenues. I was also broke, so I couldn't finance it through personal capital. I didn't have that. There was no rich uncle as well to kind of help me. Crowdfunding at this stage also didn't work because, again, everybody was going through economic hardships. Now, I've got the venture. I know the problem I'm solving. And I needed money. And you get to a point where you're saying, all right, so who's going to buy my story? Because I have a story. I have a problem that I'm solving. 400 million people in Africa lack access to financial services. One of the reasons is because they cannot prove their identity when they're doing KYC, know your customer information. You go to the DRC, 25% of children born today will not get a birth certificate for the next 18 years. These are adults who are growing up and they cannot get into the broader economic system. It's a big problem, huge problem. And I had a solution to it. We're going to build digital identity, which would allow financial institutions to quickly onboard people so that you could open a bank account, you could access insurance, you could get XYZ services, right? So the idea was there, the problem is there, the solution is there, but I had no money. Then something happened. I met a gentleman and he said to me, Victor, you know you have a passport, right? I said, yes, I have a passport. Use your passport. If people in Zimbabwe are not buying this vision, go to where this vision is going to be bought. I said, how am I going to do that? You know, I could not even afford a plane ticket. He said, you know what? Make a plan. So at Motapa, we then did an invoice. It was around $10,000. And I took half of that money, $5,000. I took $5,000. And I found a lawyer in a country called Singapore. Found this person online, never met them. And I said, I want to register a company in Singapore. I did my research. As a Zimbabwean, you can fly there. You don't need a visa. You get there. It takes you about 24 to 48 hours to register a business, right? Absolutely fantastic business environment. And the guy said, send me your details. I was giving a stranger $5,000. I didn't know this guy. And I gave him the $5,000. After a week, he sent me my incorporation papers. And I said, oh my God, I have incorporated a business outside of Zimbabwe. I've never been to this country before. And once I had that, I had a jolt of confidence. I said, now when I sell my story, I'm not selling my story as a Zimbabwean business. Well, Zimbabwe, we love this country, but investors don't, for a lot of reasons, right? I was building a business to solve a problem in Africa, not to solve a problem just in Zimbabwe. So my approach was wrong. When I was talking to investors, they would see it as a solution targeting 15 million people, about 7 million adults. Half of this population are children under the age of 21. So the real economically active population in this country is about 7 to 8 million people, give or take, right? So it's not an attractive market. Someone in Nigeria will pitch the same thing. The economically active population is 100 million. Who do you think is going to get money? But when you build a business and you say this startup is targeting Africa, 400 million people, the narrative changes, so does the game. But where is your company incorporated? Where is it registered? This stuff matters. You can have the best ideas, but you're incorporated in the absolutely wrong place. When you have a passport, you can go anywhere in the world. So I did that, and I got all these meetings set up. And then the next thing I had to do was to fly out, but I didn't have any money. So I went inside my house and said, what do I have? I had some furniture, I had some, I had a PS5, I had some stuff. So I took everything I had, found a loan shark, first and last time I ever did that. And I said, I need to buy a plane ticket. So I gave him, the guy gave me about 2K, and I bought this very complicated flight, KLM. I had to come to Joburg. I had to go Amsterdam. I had to go to Boston. Terrible. I spent like 30 hours in Amsterdam layover. But, the game is the game, I guess. So I was doing that so that I could have a meeting with somebody for 30 minutes. There's a venture capitalist. A venture capitalist is an investor who invests in traditionally early stage, high growth companies. So they're different from private equity investors who are going to find sort of a business like maybe a manufacturing company, or it's a bank, or it's an insurance company. That kind of capital really requires you to have processes and all this other stuff. Venture capitalists are really kind of figuring out, can we invest in a business that could one day become big? Right? So these guys, they take risks. And the guy said, look, I can give you 30 minutes. I was the only person who said they could meet me in person. So I took the risk, sold my stuff, went to the US, waited until, the day of the meeting. And I had coffee with this person for 30 minutes. And then afterwards I said, wow, it was nice seeing you, Victor. I'll be in touch. That was tough. So now I'm thinking, hey, I'm actually going to go back empty-handed. And I did come back empty-handed. I remember my flight was in JFK, and I was left with $10 in my pocket, which I then spent on the SkyTrain for me to get inside the airport. So now I was there, and my flight was not going to be there for another 7 hours, and I was starving at this point. And I'm thinking, hey, okay, when I get on that plane, I'm not sleeping, because I want that food that they serve. I was like, I'm not going to fall asleep. And I came back to Zim and spent about 25, maybe 26 days. And then one morning I got an email, and then they said, we loved meeting you. We want to invest in your company. We're sending you a term sheet. And, that was for a staggering amount of money. I went there, I wanted to raise about $100,000. These people came back with an offer for about $500,000, right? All I can say is you had to be there. Yes. I was 24. So there's a lot that occurred during that year. That's all I can say. A lot. But, we raised $500,000. We quickly built out our company. They were like, you need to hire this person. You need to hire this person. My bill went from paying a few salaries to, we're paying about $30,000 a month in bills. And then they kept saying, you need to grow, you need to grow, you need to grow. I was traveling all over the world. I went everywhere looking for business, looking for partners, looking for more capital. It was busy. I would not spend more than a week back in Zim without having to fly back out. It was too much. And also during this time, I learned some key lessons. One of the lessons, obviously, I learned is the fundamentals of institutional building. So when we build companies, or when you have this idea that I want to build a company, you're building an institution. Institutions have systems, processes, governance, policies. There's a lot that goes into it. You cannot just be a vessel which accepts money from individuals and it will magically multiply. You actually have to invest in the processes. When you're a CEO, most people believe that role is flamboyant, it's all that. It is the worst job on the planet to be a CEO. Because you have all these hungry mouths that are waiting for their money at the end of the month. If you do not make that payroll, you are in a lot of trouble. You have shareholders and investors who expect you to be giving them updates. Guys, this is what's happened. We are moving like this. We are growing at this rate. It's actually a full-time job. It's different from a lifestyle business that you can create for yourself to fund you and your family to maybe pay fees. When you are building an institution that is supposed to serve a large clientele, is supposed to create shareholder value, it is very different from anything else you can imagine. So I was 24, and the lesson I learned is you do need investors if you are building that kind of institution. The first business I built didn't need investors. We're building it for ourselves to take care of our own lives. This business needed investors, needed people who could hold us accountable. And a lot of things happened. You know, money was made, money was lost. And this brings me to the last bit of this segment, right? So 2 years later, today, I'm 26. Most people don't believe it. They think I'm like 35 or something. And, you know, since last year, I've been working on a new company. It's called Shona, Prince Technologies. I'm sure all of you in here know about Starlink. Everyone was talking about Starlink. You know, but I started working with these guys since last year. And I had an idea to say, how do we bring connectivity to Africa, right? One of the challenges I faced in building my first two companies was, even though the technology was built and it was great, people still couldn't access some of the apps we were building, right? The cost of the internet was just way too high. And you needed something which would alleviate the barrier to access. So this company came about as that realization. And look, I made a lot of mistakes. I'm not going to stand in front of you and pretend like I am Superman. Like I told you, I was 24 years old, I had $500,000 in the bank. You are going to F things up. You know, it is not even a secret. A lot of founders come and they pretend like they're some super smart geniuses, yeah? Those people are all lying. You know, when you have that kind of responsibility, especially at that age, it is tough. That's all I can say, it's tough. You know, I made bad hiring decisions. I hired some people who I was not supposed to hire because, you know, they appeared like they were competent, but in reality, they were incompetent. I overpaid for services. I was overpaying. You know, I was overpaying for stuff that I was supposed to be like, no, this is way too much money. Charge me less, you know. I was overpaying for stuff. And I also didn't react fast enough to certain changes I was supposed to. One of the challenges of, you know, being liquid is that you might assume that it is a weapon which allows you to weather all kinds of storms. But what you're not realizing is you are just buying time. When that time runs out, you know, you have to pay the piper. So, I mean, I learned a lot of tough lessons during that time. And there's a lot of investors who I was raising money for who declined to invest in me, right? So I have this group of investors. I pitched them Flex ID over 2 years ago. We had about 3 meetings. We met in Dubai, we met in Joburg, we met in America. And 3 meetings, they did not invest in the company at all. But I kept a good relationship. We kept talking. I kept sending them updates. Yeah, this is what's going on in my life. I'm broke now. Yeah. Yeah, but still alive, still surviving. And you know, you have to do that. You need to maintain good relationships. I said keep it simple because you see this deck I used here, this pitch deck here, just black, white. This is the format, the exact format. I just copied and pasted and changed words. I just used this exact format to raise the capital that we recently closed in July of this year. And you will not believe it. I raised it from the very same people who declined to invest in my previous company. And the biggest thing they told me when I met them, he said, we didn't invest in you back then because you hadn't yet failed. You know, you needed that process. You needed to go through that. Because at some point, I thought I had the Midas touch. You know what? Who knows what the Midas touch is? Yeah, you think everything you touch turns into gold. Yeah. I was like, no. I'm like Jay-Z and Elon Musk rolled up into one. If I just open my mouth, money will be thrown at me. You know, I really believed that at some point in time. So it does take certain experiences for you to realize that the world doesn't work like that. And I went to the US recently. I met these guys, told them I was there to raise $200,000, right? Also, guys, once you've raised a certain amount of money, yeah, know your worth. Yeah, if you raise 100K, 200K, million, 5 million, know your worth, right? So you cannot go and ask for 10,000 now. Can't do that, your level has changed. So I went there and I said, guys, give me 200,000 to start pre-seed. Understand, guys, I was the only employee. There was nothing, yeah, only a company registration. There's no products, nothing. Me and a few agreements that I had. And they said, Victor, that's not going to be enough money. 200,000 is not going to be enough. We're going to give you 3/4 of a million. And obviously I was saying, oh, thank you guys. No, I did not have the same level of, juvenile excitement as I did prior, because I know what this means now. It means responsibility. It means you actually have to get things done and you have to do things the right way. So obviously I was very excited, came back, I met Trevor, and we did a very nice interview. At the time I wasn't talking about what we were doing because we're still setting things up. And we set up now the largest distribution for Starlink in Mozambique, about 2,000 units a month. And you can see here, I said key lesson and I left it blank because honestly, you cannot finish this process, which is called education. You can't, right? Whether you raise $10,000 or you raise $1 million or you raise 10 or 100 million, any entrepreneur will tell you that this is an ongoing process. You can make hundreds of millions of dollars and lose it all. You can make billions of dollars and lose it all, right? It's not special. It is just how capitalism works. And you are a student of that institution, and you are a steward of people's capital. So the biggest responsibility that you have at the end of the day is, one, how do you ensure with the responsibility you've been given, you're able to get things done? Why am I saying all this stuff, guys? And why didn't I give you some floundering presentation on, oh, you need to present like that? It's because people really, at the end of the day, invest in you. They don't invest in your companies, right? Your company can be anything. At the end of the day, it is you, the individual, whom people invest in. So it is about how you frame yourself, how you frame your mindset, how you frame your vision and your plans. Obviously, I want to grow this to become $1 billion company, right? I'm on camera, so one day someone is going to be like, what happened? But you shoot for the moon. You miss, you land amongst the stars. And again, this company, I incorporated in the US, not in Asia this time, for different reasons. And I've kind of just gotten into this habit of registering offshore companies. I love doing that, right? Because I realized that it works. So if you're in this room and you want to build a company, a non-Zimbabwean specific company, right? A company that can grow into different markets, do not restrict yourself, right? You have a passport, right? If you don't have the money to fly, it's something you can sell so that you can fly. These are risks that, unfortunately or fortunately, you have to take for things to happen. So, to wrap this all up, initially, the key lesson I learned is you gotta raise from your community. Secondly, you gotta be able to sell to your community. before you can sell your vision or your ambition to others. And then lastly, you gotta be able to structure yourself in a manner which does make you personally investable, to make your companies investable. That is the fundamentals which, you know, I can give you guys. So keep it simple, guys. It doesn't have to be complicated. A simple black and white presentation like this can unlock miracles if you know, now have the right stuff to get it done. So I think I've just hit the time exactly. So thank you, guys. I hope you learned something, and I'll be very happy to talk to you afterwards.
Victor, at 26 years old, has raised 500,000 plus 750,000. That's almost 1.2 million US dollars from Americans, and the valuation of that is multiples of what? What's the valuation?
So you apply an 8x, 10x multiple.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about?
So Flex ID, we raised it at a valuation, post valuation of 4.5 million.
Yeah.
And then currently at Shona,
Yeah.
you know, it's almost 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not talking 14 million valuation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why are you being shy?
Because I think I'm trying as much to remain grounded.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Victor at 24 is not the Victor now. I was definitely over the moon at a certain stage in my life because I didn't understand what it meant, right, to have even that kind of valuation. Most people, and I'm really saying this honestly, we just never get to that. These amounts of money, they might sound easy to say out loud, but when you actually put them down to say, wow, this is actually real, it's not easy.
How do you stay grounded, Victor? How do you stay grounded? I mean, I would find it difficult to be grounded with $14 million valuation, 2, 3, 4 businesses. How do you stay grounded?
I mean, the key thing is the vision, right? It's still very small. I look at some of the individuals in the world of business who inspire me and some of the institutions they've built and the value of those institutions. And I say to myself, 14 million, 15 million, 20 million, 30 million, I still have a long way to go because I do want to hit that B, I want to hit that $1 billion valuation because it's doable. Other people have done it. It's not impossible. It just requires a certain level of discipline to get there.
So we gathered here and we're all about ideas. What's the one idea that you would want to impart to this crowd? One idea that comes from your 26 years of lived experience in starting up companies. What's that one idea?
Yeah, I mean, aim to create value instead of extract value. Most businesses we see in our country, unfortunately, even the nature of some of the entrepreneurs we have in our society today are extractive in nature. Meaning that they go to where value has been created already and they want to extract. I call it the arbitrage economy. You're not doing anything, you're not creating anything, you're merely getting in to figure out a way of how you can get some liquidity for yourself and maybe your family. Creating value is a fundamentally different process because when you create value, you are building a completely new sector of the economy that did not exist before. Right? I'm a Christian, so I do believe in the divine power of creation. An entrepreneur practices at a micro level a form of divine action. We aim to create things that were not there before. That is a big responsibility. So when you call yourself an entrepreneur, you are a practitioner of creation. The creation of value, you're building something that didn't exist before. You're building a new product or services. And really, it is a huge responsibility that it inspires others, right? When you build an institution and people travel, the reason I called my company Shona Prince Technologies, I said, when was the last time you got on a plane, flew out of Zimbabwe, and saw a Zimbabwean brand that you said, I'm proud of this? I've started small right now. If you go to Maputo right now, you can see some of our branding up. I want that to inspire somebody when we then go to another country. I was in Lesotho recently and I was seeing EcoCash and EcoNet everywhere. I felt proud. I said, this came from us. And I want to be able to do that for the next generation of entrepreneurs that are going to do.
Fantastic. Any questions? I have lots of questions for him. And let our questions be, Dr. Mchena, I'll start with you. I think for ease of communication, Dr. Mchena, ask your question, please. Can we run the mic to Dr. Mchena as quickly as possible? Let's make the questions sharp, no statements, please. Questions, sharp questions.
Thank you, Victor. You talked about the importance of understanding, establishing institutions. Can you say a little bit about that? What are institutions? Why are they important?
Awesome. That's a great question. The way I define an institution, it is an entity that encompasses certain values to be able to accomplish a certain vision, right? So the first thing that needs to happen is there needs to be a vision of what does this institution exist to accomplish? What is its purpose at the end of the day? And then the values enshrined in that institution mean that how is it going to be able to accomplish that vision? So Zimbabwe is an institution, right? It's an institution which is called a state. We need a vision as a country, and we need to then have values to be able to accomplish that vision. Your house is an institution. With your family, you need to be able to have a vision for your family, for your children, for your grandchildren, and you need to enshrine values in them for them to be able to accomplish that. So when I think of institutions, when it comes to startups and businesses, I'm thinking to myself, what is the vision that I want this company to accomplish? Connectivity. We want to connect 1 billion people in Africa. That is not a small feat. So what are the values that we need to have as the people who work in this institution? Because we work for the institution to be able to accomplish that. And that determines the strategy, the approach, how we work, how we hire, how we serve our customers, how we serve our products, and how we deal with investors. So in a nutshell, an institution merely answers the questions why are we doing this? How are we going to do it? And what are we doing to accomplish all the above? That is my definition of an institution.
Fantastic. Simon, a short, sharp question, please.
Okay. I just wanted to ask you, can you just advise us maybe about 5 or so books that you can recommend for someone who wants to start and get to the level of the direction you want?
Awesome. Yeah.
Well, let me answer the question. You watch the conversation we had. He does make those suggestions. Any other questions? Sorry, Simon.
I wanted to find out, as a young person who is navigating in a very complex world that most of our, let's call it seniors, do not understand. What are we doing in order to be able to move the whole conversation forward, especially at the company level, so that some of the terminology as well as the technology that you are talking about can then become accessible to the day-to-day person? And how will we be able to also move the government to be also, well, maybe not just the government, but the private sector, to be in a place where they are a little bit more open and setting the agenda together with you guys as pioneers in the industry.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you. Quickly.
Thank you. I'll answer it with this African proverb, which says, in the young man's quest to feed his hunger, if he goes to hunt an elephant, should he win, he feasts for life. Should he lose, he dies. What I learned dealing with in Africa and with our senior citizens is that they appreciate value when they see it more than words. Because the way our culture is a very patriarchal culture. So you as a child cannot really tell your father what to do or how to do it. But should you come home with an elephant and say, this is the elephant, This is the value I've been able to bring. The conversation changes completely. So the first thing I recommend anyone in my generation to do is right now, do not worry about what's going on at a senior level because you're not influenced that at all. What you want to do at an individual level is to create and build value in yourself, which then makes you have weight and merit when you do walk into a room. Because I was in those rooms, I did make those pitches, nobody listened to me. I came back differently with value, and the conversation changes. So the question really starts with you as an individual. Build value around yourself. And then that weight is what will allow everybody else, especially our senior citizens, to be able to then pay attention to what's actually going on.
Fantastic. I see two hands. I think those will be the two that we're going to take. Unfortunately, we're pressed for time. But the beauty about this, the Ideas Festival, is that a lot happens outside this room, and connections go on long after the Ideas Festival. So let's take advantage of the space that we have to connect with Victor and hear more of the ideas that he's got. Yes, please. Sharp question again.
Thank you, Victor, for your presentation. I'm Simbarasha with the 85. So my question is, can you explain the practicality of a Zimbabwean-based business registering outside the country and then raising funds and then bringing it back here? Is it something that is mechanical, practical, that you have done yourself to bring in money here? And also, how have you dealt with the regulator in such situations?
Yeah. So the practicality of it...
Don't incriminate yourself.
Yes. I hope not. So the practicality of it really comes down to several things. I would say the first thing is, obviously, you need to get your documentation in order. And you need to be able to identify which jurisdiction works best for your business. If I was starting, let's say an export trade business today as a Zimbabwean, I would register my company in the DMCC in Dubai. Right? That process is going to cost you $3,000 to $5,000. And when you do that, you're in a free trade zone that allows you to now interact with other global institutions. It's really a matter of you being very diligent with paperwork. They're going to ask you a lot of questions. They're going to go do some due diligence. They're going to do AML. All you have to do is to compile a data room, which is basically, you can think of it as a Google Drive with all your documentation in there as much as possible. Document everything you do on a day-to-day basis about your business, because that information is valuable when you're actually registering outside. Opening a bank account, a difficult thing to do in foreign countries, so you are going to need to have local partners that are able to help you do that. And once you have a local company, you have a bank account, you are an international business. When you raise capital using that entity and you now want to move that capital back to Zimbabwe, again, you have to be very intelligent in this regard, right? You cannot take money from Dubai or from Singapore and then just ship it over all to Zim at once. You need to know how you're going to allocate and deploy that capital, and you need to structure it in a manner that obviously doesn't put you, in headwinds with the Reserve Bank or with Zimmer or whoever it is. But you're an investor. I've never met a country on earth that says no to money coming in as an investment. You're not taking money out, you're bringing money in. So having those conversations with your financial institutions is also helpful. But I would say the starting point is identify your jurisdiction. 2, submit all the documentation that is required for you to do that. And make sure you do that as diligently as possible. If you are very diligent, it can take you a week, 2 weeks max. If you're not diligent, maybe it takes you a month. But once it's done and that piece of paper is out there, and you are now legally able to operate outside the borders of Zimbabwe. Yeah.
Tirivasha has a question, and as Tirivasha is getting the mic, a quick question, Victor. Do you have a single Zimbabwean investor in your entities? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, right. That's okay. Let's move on to Russia.
How are you, Victor? Thanks for the story. It's pretty amazing. And the deal that worked so far. My question is, when you did your first venture, and maybe this one, I'm not your first, but the first ID, I hear you talking about the billion-dollar valuation, which is amazing. I'm just curious as to Flex ID. Did you get in with an exit strategy, or do you have an exit strategy? One that you have?
Yeah, so when you deal with VCs, having an exit strategy is important, right? So there's several ways startup companies will exit. One is through strategic acquisitions, especially if you're building like a B2B company, right? So there are always much bigger entities which are struggling to enter, say, the African market. And this is actually something for you guys to think about. When you are building these companies, always think about who might see value in acquiring what you are doing, right? Because you have all these multinational institutions that they find Africa so difficult to do business in. You solve a problem for them here. You are the one who gets into the market. You figure out how to get clients. You figure out how to do the revenue collection. You figure out how to do the hiring. And all of that is documented. And again, I'll stress this point out. Document every single thing that you do. Document every process. That is the value. Because when someone then assesses your business, either to invest or to acquire it, they're saying, this is what we are actually investing in. This is what we're acquiring. The processes and systems that you've set up. So strategic acquisitions is one. Two, there's something called an IPO. Again, why you want to register outside of Zimbabwe? With Flex ID, we can do a listing on the SGX. With what we're doing at Shona, we can do it on the NASDAQ, or we can potentially do it on the New York Stock Exchange. Should we ever, get to that stage? I'm hoping that we do, because those are the areas those are the big leagues. So that's the Premier League of capitalism. The day you're able to list on the NASDAQ, or the day you're able to list on the New York Stock Exchange, that is the Premier League. So that's every entrepreneur's dream in my opinion. And then lastly, there are now these things we call ICOs, initial coin offerings, where you can actually do an exit to the community, right? And this is more popular with crypto companies or with blockchain companies. So there are numerous ways you can do it, but always build a business to scale and with the path of exit. That's very important.
Victor, we could go on and on, but I don't know. Unfortunately, we have to cut and go on to the next session because we've got somebody joining us from London. But listening to Victor just makes my heart sing. A 26-year-old who's doing amazing things. Victor, you make us proud. You inspire us. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to be walking around wanting to talk to you. And let's connect. Let's get inspired. Let's make an impact as we build this nation. Victor, thank you so much. Please join me in. Thank you.